Atlanta rapper Young Thug in new legal trouble tonight. There's a warrant out for his arrest on 8 felony drug and gun charges. It all stems from an incident last year.
Young Thug went from leading a rap empire to watching YSL crumble around him. One by one, his people flipped, turning the courtroom against everything he built. When the judge delivered his sentence, it felt like the world said, "Goodbye forever." But the real story, the pressure, the betrayals, the moves that broke him, is even darker than you think. Let me break it down. The sentence: time served, but a long shadow. Young Thug, born Jeffrey Williams, reached a major turning point in his life with the resolution of Georgia's YSL racketeering trial. After over 2 years in custody, he accepted a non-negotiated guilty plea, bringing a long and complicated legal battle to a close. The judge handed down a 40-year sentence. On paper, this sounds like a severe punishment, but the first 5 years were technically to be served in prison and were commuted to time served. In practical terms, Thug walked out of the courtroom a free man, though he remains under significant legal restrictions.
Throughout the week, we have followed the YSL trial as both sides hammered out potential plea deals behind closed doors. And earlier today, an agreement was reached.
The court's decision to structure the sentence this way reflects an attempt to balance accountability with recognition that Thug had already spent substantial time in custody. The case itself was high profile, largely because prosecutors framed the YSL label not just as a business, but as a criminal organization, alleging that it functioned as a network for illegal activity. The plea deal and sentence end one chapter but start another, as the long-term implications are still unfolding. Alongside the technical release from prison, Thug faces 15 years of probation. Any violations of these strict conditions could trigger the remainder of the sentence, potentially sending him back to prison for decades. The probation includes regular reporting, restricted travel, and community obligations. While Thug has avoided further immediate incarceration, the consequences for missteps are significant. During sentencing, Thug spoke directly to the judge, apologizing for his past actions and expressing an understanding of how his influence could be redirected for positive impact. The judge encouraged him to use his platform to guide young people away from the street life that influenced much of his career. This reflects the dual nature of the sentence: legal accountability combined with an opportunity for rehabilitation. In short, while 40 years may sound formidable, the practical structure gives Young Thug a chance to reintegrate into society under strict supervision. Whether he makes the most of that opportunity will depend on his ability to navigate the conditions of probation and the choices he makes moving forward. The sentence closes a major chapter in his life, but opens a new phase where freedom comes with careful oversight and responsibility. Strict probation and life on a leash. Young Thug's probation is extensive and carefully structured, reflecting the court's goal of keeping him accountable while reducing the risk of further criminal activity. One of the primary conditions restricts his access to Metro Atlanta for the first 10 years of probation, except for essential reasons such as weddings, funerals, graduations, or family emergencies. This limitation separates him from locations tied to his previous activities and provides a measure of distance from his past environment.
Just in tonight, a judge has ruled not to revoke probation for Atlanta rapper Young Thug. Now, this comes just hours after the rapper's attorney responded to the calls from the Fulton County District Attorney's Office to revoke it.
In addition to travel restrictions, Thug is required to return to Atlanta 4 times a year to give live anti-gang and anti-violence presentations. These sessions are specifically aimed at schools and community centers, emphasizing youth education and engagement. These presentations are not symbolic. They count toward the 100 hours of community service Thug is mandated to perform each year. The structure is designed to encourage him to contribute positively to communities that may have been affected by similar criminal behavior. Probation conditions also strictly limit his interactions. He must avoid contact with known gang members or other defendants involved in the YSL case, though exceptions include close family members and collaborators like Gunna. He is prohibited from promoting gang activity, using gang signs, or publicly representing criminal organizations. Random drug tests are required, and he may not own firearms. These provisions reinforce a structured approach to supervision, making clear that violations could result in immediate and severe consequences. The probation is effectively a long leash, providing a second chance under strict scrutiny. Any violation, whether minor or serious, could trigger the remainder of his 40-year sentence, potentially sending him back to prison for up to 20 years. This approach is both an opportunity and a warning. Compliance allows him to rebuild his life, but missteps carry high stakes. Thug's probation underscores the court's intent to blend rehabilitation with monitoring. By imposing structured obligations, the system creates conditions where he can demonstrate personal growth and accountability while limiting the risk of returning to prior behavior. This framework transforms freedom into conditional responsibility, ensuring that any future actions are closely observed. Legacy question: YSL label or real gang? A central point of discussion in Young Thug's case was the legal characterization of YSL, Young Slime Life. Prosecutors argued that YSL operated as more than just a music label, alleging that it functioned as a criminal organization. This argument formed the backbone of the RICO charges and reframed how both the public and legal system perceived Thug's activities. The case forced a reconsideration of the blurred line between artistic enterprise and alleged criminal conduct.
Months after the longest criminal trial in Georgia history wrapped up, Fulton County prosecutors want to move forward with the trial for the 4 remaining YSL defendants. Today, 2 of those defendants appeared in court.
YSL had long been recognized as a platform for Atlanta artists, a place where talent could thrive under Thug's guidance. The label's cultural significance in hip-hop was clear. It produced popular music, influenced fashion, and showcased the city's musical innovation. Yet, the prosecution claimed that YSL's network extended into illegal activities, using the brand as a cover for gang operations. That claim added layers of complexity to Thug's public persona and raised questions about accountability in the music industry. In court, Thug's plea reflected an acknowledgement of certain criminal acts, including drug and gun-related charges, while also maintaining that the label itself was not solely a gang. He highlighted the use of his lyrics as evidence against him, asserting that his artistic expression had been interpreted as criminal conduct. This intersection of music and law sparked broader debates about how creative work is treated in legal contexts. The sentence now shapes how Thug can operate publicly. He is barred from promoting gang activity, using certain terminology, or displaying associated signs in his music or public life. This has implications for his creative freedom, influencing both his personal identity and the legacy of YSL. For the label itself, the legal outcome creates uncertainty. Can YSL continue as a music entity without the stigma of gang affiliation? Will it adapt or dissolve under these pressures? While the legal case resolves the criminal aspect, the cultural implications for Young Thug, YSL, and the wider hip-hop community remain open to discussion for years to come. Public apology and turning a new page. During sentencing, Young Thug addressed the court with a level of sincerity that underscored the personal weight of the case. He apologized not only for his legal infractions, but also for the real-world impact of his actions on communities and fans. He explicitly stated that he had learned from my mistakes and recognized how his influence could shape perceptions of street culture, particularly among younger audiences. This acknowledgement demonstrated a level of awareness about the responsibility that accompanies public visibility.
All right, Mr. Williams, is there anything that you want to say?
Yes, ma'am. I take full responsibility for, my crimes or my charges.
The judge, Paige Reese Whitaker, encouraged Thug to redirect his influence toward constructive outcomes. She emphasized the importance of him being more of the solution and less of the problem, a message that frames probation not as punitive alone, but as a mechanism for positive impact. By agreeing to participate in anti-gang presentations at Atlanta schools and community organizations, Thug is taking active steps to engage with communities he might have previously influenced negatively. These presentations, combined with mandatory annual community service hours, form a practical part of his rehabilitation. Additionally, Thug addressed the role his music played in legal proceedings. He acknowledged that some of his lyrics had been used against him as evidence, and he expressed a desire to evolve his artistic narrative while taking accountability for the messages he conveys. This reflects a conscious effort to adapt both personally and creatively in response to the legal context. Thug's plea and apology also signal a broader effort to redefine his public image. While the phrase "goodbye forever" may carry dramatic weight, in context it represents a turning point, a commitment to reinvention, and a more conscious approach to public influence. It is both a legal and symbolic pivot, signaling a new phase of his life that focuses on accountability, personal growth, and community responsibility. Ultimately, Thug's actions in court demonstrate an understanding that his freedom is conditional and that moving forward will require a deliberate effort to align his behavior with the expectations of probation and the broader public. This moment marks a transition from legal consequences to proactive engagement with society. Legacy and cultural impact. Young Thug's sentencing is not just a legal moment, it is a significant point in the story of his career and cultural influence. For more than a decade, he has been recognized as one of the most influential voices in modern hip-hop, known for pushing vocal styles, experimenting with melodies, and challenging conventions in rap music. His legal case, however, adds a layer of complexity. It forces fans, peers, and industry observers to consider the relationship between his art and his alleged real-world criminal activity.
It's been very divisive just because of the nuances going on with the people taking plea deals. Gunna taking a plea deal. He comes across as very, very unloyal, a bad friend. It's definitely has a lot of people debating about if that was the correct thing to do or not. But I think the bigger...
On one side, there is the potential for redemption. Thug's guilty plea, combined with his apology and acknowledgement of past mistakes, presents him as someone willing to take responsibility. The court explicitly encouraged him to use his influence positively, asking him to engage in anti-violence initiatives and youth presentations. This positions him not only as a musician, but as a potential community advocate, a role that could redefine how he is remembered. The judge's instruction to be more of the solution and less of the problem highlights the dual expectation: public accountability paired with personal growth. On the other side, questions remain about the entanglement of YSL with alleged criminal activity. Prosecutors presented the label as operating like a gang, and Thug's plea confirmed some of the charges. This duality complicates his legacy. While his creative work is widely celebrated, the legal findings underscore that his rise in music was intertwined with actions that had real-world consequences. For the wider hip-hop community, this case has prompted discussions on RICO prosecutions, the use of lyrics as evidence in court, and how artists navigate ties to street culture. Young Thug now occupies a complicated space. He is both an influential figure and a cautionary example. Ultimately, his legacy will be shaped by the next decade of his life. How he fulfills probation conditions, continues to engage with the community, and produces music under these new constraints will define whether he emerges as a figure of transformation or remains overshadowed by his past. While Goodbye Forever might suggest finality, in reality, it may mark a transitional phase in a larger, evolving story. Public and fan reaction. The public response to Young Thug's plea and release was immediate and varied, reflecting the complicated nature of his case. Many fans celebrated the outcome, relieved that he avoided serving a long-term prison sentence. For longtime supporters, the plea deal represented a second chance for an artist who, despite legal challenges, still has a prominent platform and the ability to create influential work. Social media was filled with expressions of relief, hope, and excitement about his return to public life and potential music releases. Others approached the situation with more caution. Critics highlighted that the guilty plea to gang-related and drug charges validated the prosecution's claim that YSL had operated as a criminal enterprise. To these observers, the legal outcome raises difficult questions about Thug's role in real-world violence and the responsibilities of artists whose creative work overlaps with street-level realities. The case reignited debates about whether hip-hop music should be evaluated purely as art or as a reflection of lived experiences, and to what extent artists should be held accountable for associations outside their music. Thug's direct statements in court resonated with fans and observers alike. He emphasized having learned from my mistakes and expressed a desire to leverage his influence for positive change. By acknowledging the real-world impact of his actions, he presented himself as someone who understands the weight of his platform. This transparency, coupled with his court-ordered community service and anti-gang presentations, created a nuanced image of accountability and intention to reform. Media coverage has remained consistent, analyzing both legal and cultural angles. Outlets reported on his restrictions, probation obligations, and the broader implications for the Atlanta music scene. The combination of legal resolution and ongoing creative potential has produced a moment of both anticipation and scrutiny. Fans are tracking studio updates, social media posts, and potential collaborations, curious to see how his musical output will reflect his experiences. In short, public reaction blends excitement, skepticism, and critical evaluation. Young Thug's next moves will shape not only his career, but also how the broader public perceives accountability, creativity, and influence in contemporary hip-hop culture. Musical future and what's next. Young Thug's release opens questions about the trajectory of his music career under the new conditions of probation. Early signs indicate that he is already re-engaging creatively. In 2025, he contributed a verse to Lil Baby and Future's track Dumb, Dumb, and Dumber, marking his first recorded appearance after leaving custody. This contribution demonstrated that his voice...
How long before did you get so-called out of custody before you made it to the stage? How long were you think you were out?
I like 45 hours.
Yeah.
You take a bath in the jail right fast so I could just go ahead and put on clothes. I don't need to try to rent a home, get in no shower, and then let me take a bath here.
He is also reportedly working on his 4th studio album titled UY Scooty. Interviews suggest that the project is highly personal and introspective, reflecting on the time he spent in custody, the challenges he faced, and his efforts toward personal growth. The album reportedly uses a space-themed concept, reflecting the expansive influence he feels as an artist and symbolizing the breadth of his creative vision. Early singles such as Money on Money, featuring Future touch on aspects of his legal experience while maintaining a focus on musicality and collaboration. Another track, Miss My Dogs, is 7 minutes long and explores themes of loyalty, regret, and reconciliation. Fans have interpreted it as a candid reflection on relationships strained by legal issues and incarceration. The song demonstrates that Thug is approaching his work with both personal accountability and artistic continuity. His probation conditions introduce interesting dynamics for his musical career. While he is restricted from associating with certain individuals and promoting gang activity, he is permitted to travel for concerts and professional commitments. This allows him to continue performing and recording, provided he adheres to the legal framework. In this way, his career and probation coexist, requiring careful planning and disciplined engagement. Looking ahead, Young Thug's musical future could be defined as much by creativity as by compliance. He has the opportunity to reframe his narrative, exploring themes of transformation and responsibility in his work. How he manages these constraints, balances public accountability, and maintains his artistic output will determine whether this phase becomes a successful comeback, a reinvention, or a cautionary tale of potential missteps. His choices in the coming months and years will define the next chapter of both his career and legacy. Young Thug's sentencing is only one chapter in a story far from fully uncovered. The betrayals, the deals, and the inner workings of YSL. It's all part of a puzzle fans haven't seen in full. If you want to know what happens next, the appeals, the prison life, and the future of his legacy, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. The next revelation could change everything you thought you knew about his rise and fall.